Hello, my name is Larry Mabry. I'm with the Mawson Group, and I'm a life coach. And one of my clients asked me about elaborating on self-respect. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit. So, self-respect. Let's talk about that. A little personal. Self-respect is basically what you feel about yourself. And if you grew up in a family where maybe you didn't see a lot of self-respect, for example, maybe your mom was maybe fighting with dad, or maybe your dad wasn't around, or maybe mom wasn't around, or maybe mom had a tantrum whenever there's a conflict, or maybe dad had a tantrum whenever there's a conflict. Um, During that experience when you're growing up, we basically learn through our parents who model how we're supposed to basically be in life. And if there's a situation where we grow up and we see that, we grow up and we think that's how we're supposed to be in our relationships. So unfortunately, through those interactions, we don't really understand the way that we should actually show self-respect to ourselves. So the biggest thing or biggest way to show self-respect is to basically figure out what you value. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times, we go to school, we have different friends, they like this. We got Twitter feeds, we got Facebook, we got so many different things, right? But through all of that, you got to ask yourself this question: what do you value, right? Like you, like you have your friends and maybe they play tennis and it's cool. And then you have these other friends and maybe, they're part of this group, and that's cool. And then you have this other group of people and like, they're cool with that. But it's like, what do you value? Like you have a connection with all those, but are you doing those things because like, it's cool to be with those people? Or is it something that you truly, truly value? And so I wanted to share that because a lot of times we'll be in relationships and we're pleasing our partner, but we don't really understand that we got to make sure we take care of ourselves. And so to show the biggest form of self-respect for ourselves is to basically respect ourselves. But we gotta put it down, basically put it down as far as like, what do we truly value? Okay. What do we truly value? So that can be a very tough journey, because what I find is each relationship you're in, they teach you something about yourself. And so let's back up. So you stay with mom, you stay with dad when you're a little kid, and you you grow up in that household, and that's your world, right? So like when you're a little kid, that's your world. That's all you know. And all of a sudden, you go to college for some people, or you go out and you do certain things, and you're like, that person's kind of weird. And you're thinking that because like the way you were raised is a little bit different than how they're raised, but then you kind of get like, you want to be friends with them. So then you kind of like try to please them. And then you align yourself kind of with them. And then it's kind of cool for a while. But then what ends up happening is like, you end up like disrespecting yourself over so many like relationships that you kind of get discombobulated as far as like what do you actually value? And so I'll give you a situation. So I was in a relationship where I was doing everything for my mate. And then I realized that the things that I desire for myself, my mate didn't really care about. And so I had to really ask myself, okay, maybe we are having a different love language, if you will. So I basically communicated, express certain things, go through the 5 love languages, break things down. But I realized that as I peeled the layers of the onion in that relationship, that my mate had so many emotional issues for herself that she wasn't really available to be there for me in the relationship. And so because I'm very emotional, and I'm not saying I'm like out of control, but I feel that it's very important to have an equal relationship in terms of emotion, as well as physicality, as well as respect, honor. And I realized that my mate at the time didn't honor any of that. And I had to basically have a rude awakening. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. this isn't working out. But I had to like look myself in the mirror, like, self, are you going to stand for this? And if I kept allowing myself to be in that situation where I'm going to be disrespected, then whose fault is it, really? And what's really interesting is a lot of times in the past, you had relationships where parents would stick together for so long, but that was the thing to do, right? Because they didn't want to really leave the kids, the family structure, they're Catholic, certain religions and things of that nature, but they weren't really happy. But so the kids who grow up in that relationship, kids are very real. So they're looking at that like, man, that's fake, right? But, as a kid, you can't express that. You just dealing with it, right? And so I'm like, okay, so what do I do in this situation? And basically I had to step away from that situation and have a rude talk with myself and say, self, yes, what are you gonna do? I need to change something because this ain't it. And so I ended up basically having a real world conversation with myself, and I had to make some changes. And so I learned through that journey. Now, it was painful in the beginning, but I did learn that you gotta have values for yourself. You gotta figure out, what do you value? Okay. And when you put your stamp on the things that you value, you're going to have some haters. It's just what it is, because what happens is those people, they have a certain projection of what they think you should do for them, but it may not be good for you. Right. And so let me give you a scenario. So if you're on a plane, right, for those people that have been on the plane, the stewardess always says that in the event that the plane should go down, what do they say? Well, when the mask come down, you got to cover your face first. Why is that? Well, if you basically don't have air, then how are you going to help the person next to you? You can't. You can't help them, right? So that really like stuck out to me, because I realized you have to make sure that you're on point, period. But if you grow up in a situation in your family where you didn't see love, you didn't see the healthy type of relationships, I grew up in a household where my dad, he basically left when I was 5 years old. And my mom was like hard worker, like to this day, very hard working. I love her. And I appreciate that. However, I realized that sometimes people may work hard, or they may have addiction issues to kind of get away from the real issue. And that doesn't really help the issue, right? So you have to find your value, okay? And that's what value means to you, because everybody's different. So I found out for me that my values were like being okay with just being okay, right? Like being okay with mistakes. Not really caring so much what people thought. Like checking in with yourself every day to make sure that you're okay, right? And it's kind of weird, because on some level you may feel like, oh, I need to make sure that they're okay. But when you basically put yourself in that situation, you'll find that you're in relationships where the people don't value you. And ultimately they can't value you if you don't value you. Okay. And especially for my women out here. So it's important that you have self-respect. And that means that you have boundaries. And there's certain things that you have to do for yourself. And the love and the support and the things that you do for yourself will come out. And the person that you're around or you're with, they'll match you. And they'll respect you because you're respecting yourself. And it's important to make sure that you do that. The second step is, in terms of building your self-respect, is to make sure that you, let me look at my notes here. Stop caring what people think. And I know I was doing a lot of people pleasing because I grew up in a really big family. Religion was hot, and we did everything our parents told us to do. So a lot of people growing up think, oh, it's okay. You do what I tell you to do, and you just do it, right? And unfortunately, we kind of connect that love of working for it, right? Whereas love is just something that, because you're human, like it's just a God-given gift. Like you don't need to earn love, right? Like if a baby comes into the world, they're loved automatically because they're a being of God, right? So, but we forget through working hard and trying to attain this and trying to attain that, we forget that the very essence of who we are as a being is just basically just being ourselves with God, right? And that's love. That's like the highest form. And so it's important to make sure that you stop putting all your efforts in other people and you put all that energy into yourself, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you disrespect people, you don't connect with people. Of course you connect with people, but you always have to connect with them on your level. Let me give you an example. So for those people who are pit bull lovers, and I had a pit bull, he passed away several years ago, but the thing that I love about pit bulls, if you have a pit bull, is they are very, 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 very loyal. Okay, my pity people understand. Loyal dogs, very loving, very loyal. However, if you build a relationship with a pit bull and a friend comes around and the pit bull's not feeling, what's gonna happen? That pit bull's gonna growl. It's gonna let that friend know, here's the line, or whatever. It's gonna let them know you can't cross that line. And I had a pit bull who passed away, and that pit bull taught me a lot about myself, actually. His name was Rocky. He taught me about loving myself and boundaries. It's very, very important. It's amazing how God has sent, animals or people or situations in your life to help you realize that it's important to establish boundaries. Very, very important. If you grow up in a family where, you're always running around, you think that's the normal, but that's not normal. If you look out in nature, there's a time for things to heat up. There's a time for things to dry up. There's a time for things when it's raining. There's a time when things aren't raining. There's a time for when they're going to say Corona. There's a time when they say it's not going to Corona. You know what it is. But anyway, my point is, basically, you have to set the boundaries and you have to use your values as a barometer for how you're going to move in your life. Now, here's the part that's cool. In the beginning, it's very difficult because you're so used to people pleasing and doing what everyone else said you should do. But what I realize is when you take the stock to really prioritize yourself and start to love yourself, then what happens is God starts to love you. You'll find that people come in your life, they'll show you a different part of love that you didn't realize. You'll find that there's a different quality of life that you can live. You'll find that by you being who you are, just perfect the way you are, that God has you. He'll send people and situations and experiences that because you chose to go on this journey of self-love or self-respect, then God is going to say, okay, I got you, bling. And he's going to send people and situations to support you on that journey, because part of the reason why we're here is to learn lessons, right? So Earth is basically a school, and we have certain lessons that we learn through people. We have certain lessons that we learn through experiences. We have certain lessons that we learn through frustration. We have certain lessons that we learn through elation. And through all of that, we still learn a lesson. But if you look at it in terms of saying, oh, you know what? All I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best and everything is cool. Yeah, it sounds okay. But however, when you're struggling with self-respect, you have to constantly put some time within yourself and take away some of the things that's not true, because a lot of the masks that we wear are things that we got from other people or the way we were raised, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. Okay. So, but we have to challenge that in order to really see who we are, and you got to feel within your heart. Okay. So anyway, hopefully you find that really valuable. My name is Larry Mabry. I'm a life coach here. I'll be posting some more videos like this. If you like what you hear, click on the link below, subscribe, and I'll give you more. Subscribe so that way when other things open up, as far as like other things I'll be covering, you'll be the first to know about it. Okay. All right. Thanks. Peace and love. Deuces.